Welcome to the Coaches Show. I'm Darrin Joins, Williamson County Schools Athletic Director. We're talking about tonight's WCTV basketball matchup. Ravenwood High School at Summit High School. It's a District 12 4A matchup. We're going to start off talking to our girls' coaches. I want to welcome Coach Andrew James of Ravenwood High School, Coach John Wild, Summit High School.
Appreciate you having us.
Thanks for having us.
Coach Wild, second time in the studio this year. Coach James, it's been a little bit, so
It has been. Yeah.
he'll be in mid-season form, Coach James.
There you go. Yeah. I bet he will.
So let's talk a little bit about your teams. We're going to start with Coach James. You come in 3-16 overall. I know that's been disappointing for you and your team. 0-3 in district play. Certainly still a lot to play for. Summit coming in 10-10, 0-2 in league play. Coach James, again, I know you're not totally happy about that result so far. And listen, not making excuses for anything. I would argue, and I've said this all year, you may have the best schedule in terms of who you have played of any of our girls' teams.
Yeah, it was really tough. I got to tell
Who
you.
made that schedule, by the way?
Unfortunately, it was me, I guess. Yeah. I wanted a tough schedule to get us ready for district. Of course, then when you add in the fact you play in some Christmas tournaments, and you don't really control who you play, that made it even tougher. It has not gone the way we've wanted it to go. We haven't had everyone for every game. That's hurt, but we're just going to continue to get better as a tournament sport. We keep trying to tell our girls that we have a lot of things that we have to get better at. And if we don't get better at them, this is going to continue. So that's been the message to the girls going forward. And look, we're in a good league. We got good teams in our league, and we've played good teams there. So nothing to take away from that. But we know that we have to play better if we want to, have a good tournament run.
Coach Wild, your team, and I feel like it's same story, different chapter. We're always talking about this on the air. We're talking about when we call each other on the phone. I feel like your team really had found that rhythm. And I say this, and I mean this, we talked about this. One of the best performances I've seen from any girls' team since I've been in WCS was your team against Brentwood. Brentwood's a great team. I think they'd won 12 in a row. You beat them by 30 points, and you lose Nicole Rosani again. She's out for the second time this year. That has to be frustrating. Coach James talked about that as well with his team. Unfortunately, it's just part of it.
It is, and we went through it at Christmas and had some not so great moments, but I did think that made us better because it put some kids in some uncomfortable situations, and adversity made them stronger. So when we got back, we started off pretty well. We played Franklin, and I thought we played pretty well at home and won that basketball game. And then, we go to Brentwood, who is really good. They've got really skilled kids that can shoot the ball. And, we played well. We played well defensively. We played well offensively. We shared the ball and shot the ball pretty well. And then we go to Siegel on Friday night. I can't remember the date, but early on. And, we were playing pretty well early, and Nicole went down. So we kind of gathered ourselves there and got through it. Wasn't as great as when she was, running the show for us. But, here we are again. So we've been through it at least, right? So, and I don't know how long we're going to have to continue to go through it. But, naturally we're better with her because she's a 2-year starter at the point guard, and she's a 4-year starter for us. She's a kid that can get to the rim. She's starting to shoot the ball really well. She made 5 threes against Brentwood. That's where she's really improved her game, is her perimeter shooting.
And just named to the Basketball Coaches Association All-Star game.
She did, yeah. She's going to play in that game in March, and she's got some small college offers that she's trying to go through and figure out. So, it's frustrating, and it frustrates our team because they know how important she is. But we just gotta kind of get comfortable in some other roles, maybe some roles we've been in before, but still a little bit uncomfortable, right? Because she's such a good player. And we'll just go with it and see what happens.
One of the things I wanted to ask you both about this is a little off script, but I was thinking about this and you guys talking before the show. I feel like, and this happens in different situations, but you've got Coach James just getting started with your career, going to have a long career. Coach Wild, let's face it, probably on the back nine of yours.
On the back nine. Yeah,
There's a relationship here, though, that I think is pretty neat. Coach James, talk about that a little bit, because I know you and Coach Wild talk a lot.
Yeah, we do. He's become a really good friend of mine, and a lot of the coaches here. Tony Hill at Independence. I talked to him for 30 minutes after our game. After our game on Tuesday night. I am younger. I'm a little younger, and I'm in my fourth year, and I'm leaning on other coaches and saying, "Look, what do you think about this?" And I know we will compete, and we'll want to beat each other tonight. But we're friends, and that's the cool thing about the coach community is that we really want to help each other out, and because we know what each other goes through. We know with some of the situations and the drama that we deal with that some other people may not understand, and it's really good to have someone who has been coaching for a long time, a legendary coach in John Wild over here, right? To really help me out.
Coach Wild, and this is something I had the fortune to coach with you there at Franklin High School for a few years. I've seen this with you. You really value that being able to talk to other coaches and younger coaches in particular.
Yeah, I think we're all good thieves, right? We've got to get information somewhere, and I've always leaned on everybody. I leaned on you at Franklin when we were together, just different ideas, and even I think probably when I was at Wilson Central and you were at Beach, that's when we really started forming our relationship. But Andrew's a good young coach. I think he cares about his kids. I think he runs a quality program. I know he's got the kids' best interest, and I know they're struggling. Okay. But I'll say this, he's got some really good players. This is a tournament game. So, even though we're doing battle, what I've tried to tell him is keep fighting. It's a tournament game. We've got a long road to go here. And I've seen his players play. I've watched them on film. I've coached against them, some for, 3 years now. And he's got a good ball club. And I think when it's all said and done, they're going to be in the mix of it at the end of the season. But talk about friendships. Andrew's a good friend, and he echoed, the rest of the league. It's the one thing about our league that I like on the girls' side. I can't speak for the guys, but I'm just speaking for the girls. We all get along. Megan at Columbia, and then Andrew, and then Tony and Chris. They're great guys, good coaches, good people. I think they're all building people. And I think here in Williamson County, that's important. I think you look at Tony and Chris and Andrew, they're all good, really good building people. And I know their school's proud to have them inside the building teaching those kids.
Let's talk a little bit more about your teams now. Enough with the niceties. Let's get down to business here. Coach James, your team Tuesday night, I know it's one you probably thought, man, to be, let's don't say have to have it, but you probably felt going in it'd be really, really nice and go a long way if we can get this win over Indy. Again, Indy's playing well. Coach Hill's done a nice job, 52-41. They come out on top. Again, you've had some players that hadn't been there. And again, not to make excuses and to look backwards, even though you had some players who had some experience, Flynn with a lot of experience, Kat Garai with a lot of experience, Prestigard with a lot of experience. But that loss of Reagan Grimes, let's just face it, that's tough. That's tough to replace someone like that. Not to call out your kids and saying they're not worthy or anything like that, but that's a pretty dominant athlete that you lost.
Yeah, she's been starting at Tennessee Tech too. She's had a really good freshman year. Yeah, look, we've had to find kind of our new identity, and makes you really appreciative of the things that she did too. So yeah, right now our thing is we got to get back to fundamentals. That has really been hurting us the last few games, and and I'm sure it's a confidence thing with our record. So we have to toe that fine line of building up confidence, but also having the expectation that this needs to get better. So we're trying to figure that out. I think the girls are still bought into what we're doing, and they want to do well. We're just trying to help them get there to understand that. So We've had some other younger players that have played a lot for us that have stepped, like Julia Hines has been starting for us a lot. She's a sophomore. Caroline Comstock. I've had a freshman, Lila Kennedy, who's played at point guard some. So we have a really good young group too that's coming up as well. That's contributing, and they're, they're getting thrown into the fire a little bit as well. But we will keep fighting, and we will keep playing and practicing until they tell us we can't do it anymore, and that's what we'll do.
Well, and you talked about, both of you mentioned, certainly in this sport in particular, it is so centered around the tournament. Coach Wild, your team, you're coming off a loss at Columbia on Tuesday night after wins over Brentwood and Siegel. Let's talk about this a little bit, Coach, even though your team looks a little different than it did. Talk about that game against Brentwood. I was there that particular night. I thought in terms of passing the ball, shooting the ball, people understanding their roles, one of the better wins that I've seen. And I would say this about teams that shoot well. I always think it gets underrated. If teams shoot well, they probably pass well. Yeah. Would you agree with that?
I would. We shared the ball that night. I think there was multiple kids with 3+ assists, and then we scored in transition where they were sharing it. We were scoring in our half-court offense where they were sharing it, making the extra pass. Brentwood played a lot of zone that night. We had to make that extra pass, and we did it, multiple times. So that was fun to watch. And they're a really good team. And we played them zone, and they shoot it really well, which kind of scared me. But I thought our kids did a really good job in our zone, kind of matching up with their shooters. And it was schematically, they followed the game plan like we needed to. And then, we took care of the ball too. We didn't turn it over a lot, and we won the rebounding battle. And I think, in any game you play in this league, the one thing we talk about is win the turnover battle and win the rebounding battle. Because if you're doing that, you're going to have more possessions. So that's something we did that night, but it was fun to watch. And, maybe we can get back to playing that way here pretty soon.
Hey, talk about this, Coach Wild. Coach James mentioned some of his players that have stepped up, some of his role players. For your team, and I know we hear a lot about Ali and Johnston, Rosani, rightfully so, but a couple of your role players, Trinity Harrison, Tarek Shear, both over 35% from the field, both over 65% from the free throw line, two of your top rebounders. Those other players don't score and do what they're doing without those two players.
Yeah, they've done a really nice job for us, particularly on the glass, rebounding the ball. I think it was a Brentwood game, and Trinity's 5'4", maybe, and had 14 rebounds, which I'm sure in the 27 years I've been a head coach, one of my kids has gotten 14 rebounds, but I don't think I've had a 5'4" kid get 14 rebounds. But she competes and she plays hard.
Yes, she does.
And she's doing a really nice job for us. She's kind of played a little bit at times throughout her career, probably not as much as she's wanted to, but she's really done a really nice job for us this year. And then Tarek's a sophomore, and multi-sport kid, plays softball, really good softball player. But she's doing a nice job for us too. Tarek does a great job shooting her free throws. She will rebound. She's a strong kid. She can score inside, and I think she's developing at a nice level for us. Where, both those kids have been fun to coach, and been a pleasure to watch this year.
Coach James, let's talk about your district right now. So you've got Columbia and Nolensville both 2-0. A lot to play though. Independence 2-1. You guys coming in at 0-3 and 0-2. Talk about your team and the importance of. Right now you'd be in the 4-5 game. Again, we don't know how that'll end up turning out. But getting that district win or finishing in the top 3 and advancing to the region tournament. Talk about those possibilities and getting some important experience for your team as well. Yeah,
I mean, I'm just thinking about last year how we were the 1 seed and went to the 4-5 game to see who we were going to play the next night. And I will say, getting in those top 3 spots and knowing that you have a region berth secured is a pretty big deal. At least it was for me. But, like I said, it's a tournament sport, and we do feel, and it's no disrespect to anyone, I mean, we feel like we can compete with every district team in our district. We feel like if we play well, we can win. But the thing is, I know all the other coaches feel that way as well. I feel like we're pretty even when it comes to that. So, we're just going to continue to work and improve, and we'll find, the right matchups, the right rotation to help us get over this hump and have success. Because, like I said, I do think we can make a tournament run. As I've said earlier, we're going to have to make some changes and hone in on some of the things that we need to get better at.
Again, we're talking about tonight's WCTV game of the week, Ravenwood High School visiting Summit, District 12 4A matchup. To finish off here, I'll start with you, Coach Wild. Talk about some keys for your team tonight. Maybe just things that matter focusing on you, but also matching up with Ravenwood.
Well, I think they're a tough matchup because I think they've got 4 and 5 kids that can score the ball, and they've got experience, and they've got kids that have been in those big moments before, and I just think they're hard for us to match up with. I think first of all, we're going to have to find press to guard and rail. They've killed us, in multiple games. They've made numerous threes, so we're going to have to do a good job of locating them because those are 2 good high school shooters. I think Elizabeth Flynn is a phenomenal high school basketball player. I think she runs the floor harder than anybody in transition that I've seen. I was watching film this morning, and she runs the floor. So we're going to have to get back and find her and get our defense set. Garai, I think, is a problem inside. So we're going to have to knock her off the boards. We're going to eliminate her touches. And when you talk about Flynn finding her in transition, she's a great offensive rebounder too, trying to keep the ball out of Garai in the post, and then you got a couple shooters outside. That's a hard matchup. So we'll, hopefully figure it out. Defensively, we're going to have to do a good job of limiting those kids. I don't think you can totally stop those kids, but hopefully we can just kind of contain them a little bit. And if we do that, I think we'll. Not saying we're going to win, but it'll help us definitely.
Coach James, how about for your team?
We gotta be disciplined in how we guard them. I mean, obviously with Ali and Johnston, they're really, really good shooters. Ali's, both, they're both good at driving too. So we got to make sure that we're ready to guard them. And then, I think they're going to run a lot of stuff, obviously, and we got to be ready to guard those things they do. Every time I've played him, we've gotten some weird defense that we have to go against. So I know that we'll have to be.
We would never.
I know.
Ever.
So he'll be a basic 2-3, nothing crazy right that. But we have to mentally be ready to execute the things and to what they play us on defense. And be disciplined on our matchups because Quinn Johnson gets open. We can't have that. That's a nightmare for us. So we have to do that. And like I said about some of his role players, they do a really good job setting those screens, getting those rebounds. So it's going to be a tough matchup for us, and we have to play well in order to have a chance.
Well, gentlemen, appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules. Good luck to both of you tonight.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
We'll be right back to talk to the boys' coaches from Ravenwood and Summit High School. Welcome back to the Coaches Show. I'm Darrin Joins, Williamson County Schools Athletic Director. We now have boys' coaches here. We got Ravenwood High School head coach, the dean of basketball coaches in Williamson County, 17th year. And sitting in for Coach Jim Fay, head coach at Summit, we've got Trey Tate. So we've kind of got the opposite ends of the spectrum. 17 years, 1 game. Coach Tate steps in on Tuesday night. Summit gets the win over Columbia Central. Appreciate both of you guys being here.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
Let's talk a little bit about your teams. So Ravenwood's coming in tonight, 10-10 overall, 1-2 in district play. Summit 9-11, 1-1 in district play. Let's start with you, Coach Whitlock. You played a tough schedule. You would probably say, hey, there's some games I wish we would have won, but you have to be happy, especially with your younger guys, how they've progressed. You've had some ups and downs, but part of that's the schedule, part of it's the youth.
Yeah, we lost 5 starters, 90% of our scoring, but we really don't look at that as an excuse. That's just kind of where we're at, and we've just really been a model of inconsistency this year. And once we can get consistent, we'll have a chance to be good. And if we don't, we probably won't achieve what we want in the season.
Coach Tate, your team, it's interesting in looking at it. Your team has been a team of streaks. You win 3 or 4, you lose 3 or 4, you win 3. Part of that's probably experience in youth too. What do you do to maybe keep that going? You got it's a 1-game winning streak, so you want to make that 2 and 3 and 4. What's that going to take?
We just got to continue to get better at guarding on the defensive end of the floor and executing on offense. We got to limit our turnovers. We've only got 1 senior, and so we've got a lot of guys who haven't been in the fire, so to speak. And so just limiting turnovers offensively and guarding on defense. And we did that on Tuesday night against Columbia, and it paid off.
Coach Whitlock, I know they aren't league games, which is odd to talk about. I know you'll be happy that they are league games next year. You're one of the ones that has been a big proponent of us all playing together. But with your team that's younger, you had to get a lot of confidence from the 2 Franklin wins. That's a really good team. And I would even argue that overtime loss at Lebanon, those had to be confidence builders.
Yeah, they were. I mean, those are games where we were locked in. Obviously, Franklin has got a really good team. Their record shows that. Their win over Independence in Florida shows that, and it was a good matchup for us. We came out and played well, and then Lebanon, we had every opportunity to win that game. So, like I said earlier, we've been inconsistent, but when we've been locked in and done the things we've asked them to do, we've been really good. And then we've had other nights like last week at Columbia where we were just no shows and looked pretty bad. So hopefully we can start to build some momentum, and as we get into late January and February, turn into the team that we want to be.
Coach Tate, you've got the 1 senior and Alex Pollard. Some of the things that Coach Whitlock just said, you could probably repeat as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we just like you said, we're kind of a streaky team. We won 4 to start the year, and then lost 4, and then won 4, and then lost 4, and so it's just a matter of being able to be consistent and kind of come in and do the things we need to on a night in, night out basis.
Coach Whitlock, Tuesday night, tough loss with what I think has turned out to be a pretty good rivalry in WCS. Part of it being you have good teams. A lot of history, and really you look at the past 2 years, your games with Independence have been pretty special. Tough loss at home, 45-44 with Independence. Another close game. I know you and I talk about this a lot. Those games that are 5 points or less, you've had a bunch of those games this year.
I mean, it feels like all of them with a couple of exceptions. I mean, we've had 3 buzzer beaters. We had 3 buzzer beaters in 26 days that all went our way. And, Tuesday night, I thought we had the opportunity to maybe sneak another one in there. But it was a great game. It's obviously turned into a great rivalry with 2 postseason games last year and then a really tight contest this year. So, I think those games make you better. I mean, that's the way it's going to be. I mean, every game we've had in district play, in region play so far has been like that. Nolensville is a 2-possession game. Centennial is a 1-possession game. And then Tuesday night, comes down to the buzzer. So, hopefully that'll pay dividends down the road.
Coach Whitlock, pretty young team, but we have to recognize your seniors who've had some great leadership for you. Will Brent, Ethan Myers, Brett Shelby. These are guys who've really stepped up for you. But I think when you talk about your team, you almost have to start, in my opinion, with Evan Gaynor. He's sort of the motor of your squad. And then Max Kemple, who I love, sophomore, never seen a jumper he didn't like. He's got confidence in himself. Rocco Lamuno, another guy stepping up. In fact, Coach Tate said before, and I think a lot of people would say this, please no more Gaynors. Please no more Lamunos. You love it. Your opponents don't love it so much.
It's a family affair at Ravenwood High School. I mean, it's kind of been that way for years, going back to the Ericksons and the Tudines and now,
sure,
these families here. But we've got a nice mix of seniors that have kind of waited their turn to be impact players in our program. And we got really good younger classes. The current junior class won the county championship when they were freshmen. Last year's group finished runner-up, and we got another strong freshman class that's playing this year. So, you have a chance to be good when you start stacking classes back to back to back. So it's continuing to get those guys experience and build on what they've done. But we're trying to set up to be successful at the end of this year and years moving forward because we've had a couple of good runs before this as well.
And I would say this, Coach Whitlock, I was thinking about this the other day. Hey, if I'm going to start a team, I'd be okay with this. I can only pick WCS juniors. I get to pick juniors. My opponent gets to pick any other class they want. I'd feel pretty good about my squad.
It's a nice crew. I mean, maybe we should put together a team and go to Europe or something and play, right? That'd be a fun trip.
Listen,
Coach Joynes just can't wait to get back and coach, so he's like, wait, what? So yeah.
Coach Tate, let's talk about your squad. Big district win. I thought Tuesday night at Columbia, and listen, part of that is, again, we talked about Coach Fay being on the shelf a little bit. You find out right before the game. That's an adjustment not only for you, it's an adjustment for your team, but you get a big district win at Columbia, 65-59. That had and has to be a confidence builder.
Oh, absolutely. Like we said before, the streaks. We want to start a streak. To get a winning streak, you have to have 2 games in a row, and so we want to start that winning streak. And our guys are. I mean, they just played hard. And when you play as hard as they did on Tuesday night, good things tend to happen.
Talk about Cade Linfesti. When I watch your team, to me, he's that guy for you when I talk about Gaynor for Ravenwood.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find somebody who's faster with the ball in their hand than Cade is. And at times, he tends to get to going too fast, and it leads to turnovers. But he's done a really nice job the past few weeks of slowing down just a little bit, because him slowing down just a little bit is still faster than most people. And he's done a good job of late in the game. I think he had the last 6 points of the game against Columbia with 2 layups and 2 free throws. And he's probably, him and Alex are probably the most experienced players on our team. Cade got some time last year and had an injury and missed some time, and so he was able to come back at the end of last year, and he's really carried that forward into this year. And
especially the games you've played well, I feel like Marty Phillips, your sophomore's played well.
Absolutely, that's been huge. The past 2 games against Siegel and Columbia, Marty's been shooting the ball really, really well, and that's something that this summer that he shot the ball really well, and then at the beginning of the year, He didn't shoot it as well, but, man, he's coming on, and when he gets hot, he's pretty hot.
Coach Whitlock, the girls' coach, has talked a lot about, and I know you've done this as well, basketball, fair or not, you have a wonderful regular season, and you get beat in the tournament, it tends to be the tournament that people remember. And I think the opposite happens too. You know, you're saying, hey, we're up and down and we're not totally happy with it, but gearing towards that district tournament, if that works out well, you'll feel pretty good about your season. And really, it's the way it's judged, fair or not.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the way it is. We've had some great teams at Ravenwood. Back when you were coaching our first few years in the district, that we had teams that went 19-6 and 18-5 and got bounced in the first round of the district. And that's kind of everything that people remember, including myself. But then you also have those moments where you make a run in the postseason. And we've had mediocre teams during the season that have made runs that have been looked upon favorably. So, I mean, it's a catch-22, but it is what it is, and I don't think we'd rather have it any other way.
Let's talk about the district standings. Going into tonight's game, Independence 3-0, and then you've got Columbia, Ravenwood, Summit all with 1 win, Nolensville 0-2. Coach Whitlock, you really, outside of Independence, who they're in the driver's seat right now, but you can't really predict order of finish. First of all, you hadn't played everybody yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. I mean, Independence on paper clearly has been the top team, even going into the season. A lot of weapons, great guards. Witt in the paint is really good. But, I mean, as we proved on Tuesday night, I mean, there's probably only a couple of possessions that really divide these teams when it's all said and done. I mean, the fact that Nolensville is 0-2 is a little bit of an anomaly, because they're gonna have some success. Coach Gadice is doing a good job. Coach Fay and Coach Tate are doing a great job at Summit, and they had it a 3-point game against Independence midway through the third quarter. So when it's Williamson County basketball and it's rivalry, you don't know what's going to happen.
No doubt about that. Coach Tate, with your team, you have to have, and not that because this team lost to this team and our team beat this team, it doesn't mean when you play each other it's going to work out that way. But you have to have confidence, not only from that Columbia win, but this is a team that knocked off Ravenwood as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, our district, I think, is really, really tough, top to bottom, and I don't think there's a lot of parity throughout the district. Obviously, like Coach Whitlock said, Independence, I think, is on paper the best team. They're deep. They run 8, 9, 10 guys and there's not really much drop off when they run those guys from off the bench on the floor. But everybody else, I mean, it's just, you got good coaches, you got good players, And when you got good coaches and good players, who knows what's going to happen?
Yep.
I mean, you could lose by 30, or you could win a close game, or you could win by 30. It's just a kind of a you just got to show up and play and see what happens.
Coach Whitlock, again, we know each other well, coached against each other a lot of years, talk a lot. I got a feeling, if this is not true, you correct me because I know you will, and may even try to get something in for your team to be motivated by. So don't put words in my
Me?
mouth.
I never do that. I don't know what you're talking
But
about.
I think you kind of like that hunted versus hunter thing. Is that true?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd rather be the underdog, especially in Williamson County when you have kids that are front runners.
Yeah.
That can be a little difficult sometimes. I mean, you got to play with a little bit of chip on your shoulder.
Yeah.
And I think our kids last year had it. I think our kids this year are trying to develop it. And we've got a lot of teams in our district that have a whole lot to prove. I mean, even Independence, I think, they've had their state tournament run a few years ago under Coach Glass, but I think Coach Wilkins and those kids are trying to put their own stamp on the program.
Sure.
And get over that hump and get back there. And when you look at our region, it's no different. I mean, there's just not a lot that separates the top from the bottom, and it should make for a fun district and region tournament. But I do kind of embrace the underdog role. And when you and Coach Qualls said we were mediocre at media day, well, we ran that back, and we got a sign in our locker room says, "Were you mediocre today?" So we'll use that to our advantage if we can.
Now, listen, not to turn your words against you, but earlier on, I think when you were talking about your record, you didn't say the word mediocre, but you sort of said it.
Well, that was calculated. I mean, it's like a 20-minute car ride over here. You got a lot to think about. So, this is my first time. This isn't my first time being here. So.
Coach Tate, talk about this with your team when you're talking about district play. And I think your team was really in this position last year too. Talk about that importance of, you get in the top three, you're already in the region. But talk about for your young team with only one senior, what it would mean to get to that region tournament.
Yeah, well, when you've got experience and guys who have been battle tested, that 4-5 game is a little bit easier to play because they've been in big games, they've taken big shots and stuff like that. But when you got a young team, they haven't been in that situation, and so you'd like to try to avoid that situation if you can and try to get one of those first 3 spots, because you get in a 4-5 game and like we've said, this league's good. Yeah, I mean, who knows what can happen in that 4-5.
Some strange things have happened in 4-5 games, 3-6 games, and really even 2-7 and 1-8. All right, let's finish up with this. Appreciate you guys being here. Again, we're talking about tonight's WCTV game of the week. Ravenwood will visit Summit for a 12-4A district matchup. Coach Whitlock, give me a key or two for tonight's game for your team.
Well, I mean, we're going to have to play our best basketball. We're going to have to be locked in. We're going to have to defend the dribble. Coach Fay and Coach Tate have done a great job with that team. There's been some attrition, which was interesting to say the least, and they've kind of taken a younger group of kids and they played really well. And I've been very impressed with what they've been able to do with their youth. And I think the key is when you let younger kids get confidence and get rolling into a game, that can be very problematic. So if we don't come out and play well from the tip, it's going to be probably a very long night for us. But containing the dribble, making sure we control the defensive glass, and being able to execute against their zone. If they play zone, he didn't hand me a scouting report or anything. But we've had trouble with zone lately, so that's something we put a lot of emphasis on in practice.
Coach Tate, what do you have to do to take this one win over Columbia and make it a streak, 2 wins?
I would say trying to string together the positives that we have. Like on Tuesday against Columbia, we gave up 26 offensive rebounds and still won the game. And so if we can limit the offensive glass and still guard the way we did, because we gave 26 offensive rebounds, but they only had 18 second chance points. So we guarded really well, but we've got to start putting together guarding with rebounding, with executing on offense, and start just adding pieces to our game. And I think as our team continues to grow and continues to build, I think that's something that we can do. And then I really think that we've got to handle their shooters. They got 6 or 7 guys who will put it up from outside. Lamuno, Gaynor, 35. I don't know his name. The guard.
Kaiser, yeah.
Yeah.
Campbell.
12. I mean, you can list a long list of players for them who don't mind letting it fly. And then another thing that we hadn't talked about yet that really stood out to me on film is number 13. how athletic he is. I'm not sure what his name is.
Trey Halley, yeah.
Trey, he is a phenomenal athlete, and he's got a really good motor, and so stopping him and Shelby and Brent on the offensive glass is going to be huge.
Well, gentlemen, we're looking forward to it. Appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to be here today.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you for joining us for the Coaches Show. We'll see you next time.